Welcome to Chestnut Point, episode 7. I brought it outside today. I thought it's nice weather. In the background, you see Whiteface Mountain, close to Lake Placid and the Adirondacks. It's just a beautiful spot up here. So I have Tammy with us again, our head of development, and Nicole, our head of the digital team. And I can't wait to hear what you two brought to the table this week. So Tammy, why don't you kick it off today?
Good morning. So the thing I wanted to talk about is how Americans are choosing not to spend the stimulus payment. Despite 20% layoffs, 38% are choosing to save, not spend. So it sort of goes back to what we talk about on a regular basis of how important it is to not only market correctly, but to get to the right audience. And rethinking your marketing strategy to hit the people that it matters the most, I think right now is imperative.
You said how many percent, what percentage is saving it, you said?
38% are saving.
That's amazing,
Wow.
but that's a really high percentage. And that's, it's actually mind-boggling to see, it's probably the people that can save it are the ones that don't even need it. And
Right.
The ones that spend it are the ones that we need more.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
I don't know, I'm not sure. That also means the money doesn't go into the economy. A big chunk, like 38% of the money doesn't go into the economy.
Right.
That's another really good point.
Yeah,
But
which was the entire purpose of this payment, was to keep the economy afloat. So, yeah, it's
I'm interested to see if they issue another one, if the numbers will stay the same or if they'll drop.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Well, it's it will be interesting to see in general. I know you have a meeting with a restaurant later today, and I'm anxious to hear. I know you want to interview them. I'm anxious to hear, how they are coping with it, with this, and what they do. Actually, get some of the stimulus money from the people. How they market it. So it's certainly difficult to market in this space, but it's also, let me segue into actually what I wanted to talk about today. It's also related to the COVID crisis at the moment, and I wanted to talk about how what you're doing as a company is impacting your brand in a good way or bad way. And as a second part related to that, I want to talk about how it should change your strategy, your company strategy. So let me pick up the first thing. One of our employees' spouse is working for ShopRite supermarket, and is a full-time employee, works there. And one of his colleagues was tested positive. And because of that, he was asked not to come to work, but he was also told that he will not get any money. For me, it had a profound impact knowing that on the brand of ShopRite. ShopRite, they in this whole crisis, so all the supermarkets, they were glorified as brands that they're all heroes and whatever. So the supermarket chains, they take the brand, they take the good part of the hero, and then I thought, and then you treat your employees not like heroes, but really badly. You don't live up to actually on the label, live up to the label. And it really made me think, I then spun this further, because I always had a very a critical relationship with company values. I did a lot of strategy work for senior executives in multi-billion-dollar companies and national companies, and what I have found is, the company values are being defined by companies. They're very often, or for most part, not lived by the senior executives. And I always thought company values are overrated and a farce. Now, having a small company, I do think that we have, company values and we try to live them every day. But I think this whole crisis is actually re-exposing the companies that truly have company values and the ones that don't. Because it's easy to have good company values when everything is great.
Right.
But how great do your values are they still alive now in this time? If they're not, I want to go out and say, your brand is suffering a lot. Your brand is being damaged at the moment as we speak, if it is not already. And again, the example I made with ShopRite, it was so exemplary for exactly that issue. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I do. Sephora is another one we can look at. As soon as this happened, where stay-at-home orders were put in place, Sephora took all of their part-time, for the majority of their part-time and their seasonal employees, put them on a conference call and let them go. Didn't give them a chance to explain, didn't give a chance to say, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to pay your benefits. They had to apply through a portal to see if they were eligible. And for me, as someone who spends more money than I would like to admit at Sephora, I won't spend money there now. I don't like how that was dealt with. I had friends who were let go because of that. And, when you do look at Thomas's example of ShopRite, it really makes you think, they're taking a look at, all of their employees, and you're saying, employees first, family first. If you go to their social media, they're saying, we're putting this in place for our employees. We're putting this in place for our customers. But when you're not enforcing things and you're not being there for your employee when they need it the most, it's going to get exposed, and it's definitely going to do damage to your brand.
Right. So it goes back to the method where people in the past have said publicity, good or bad, is still publicity. But I think that statement is totally different now than what it used to be. So we've talked about two brands that aren't stepping up. I want to tell you about a brand that is. So my mom still works. She is 68 years old, and she works for United Van Lines. They have announced, which this is probably not public knowledge, but they have announced that when it is time to come back, they're basing it off of each employee. That it's not, oh, let's come back, open up the gates, everybody come in. They sent a letter actually stating, we love our employees, and we are going to do this in a way that is most beneficial to our employees. They have a disadvantage nationwide because all these truck drivers are coming into their headquarters, which is located here in St. Louis. And so they are exposing their employees even more. And they've stepped back and said, okay, we're basing it not over company-wide, not over trying to be the first out of the gate or the last one to step up. They're saying we are going employee by employee, which is huge. My mom's older. She's in great health, but that's still like, thank you, United. Thank you for realizing your employees are valuable.
Yeah, and then it shows those are good examples for how you can work it and how you can make it work. But the thing is, you have to want to work it. It's not easy. It's not easy. You know it from our company. We struggled, the first few weeks, and I went out and just said to everybody, our goal is not to lay anybody off. But, you have to really want it and want to work it and then look for options. So let me take that. And so let me go to the second part of all of this. And that is actually related to the office space. Because we are actually also, incidentally, in the middle of office move next month, which is, really funny because we will not go into the office anytime soon. But it really made us rethink, how do we actually want to use our office space? And actually, we discussed this already quite extensively, because I think, first of all, I don't think we experience that we need to be back in the office 5 days a week. We realize that we miss each other. We want to have interaction with each other again in the office, but not necessarily 5 days a week. Working from home has some advantages too, and speaking for points, I have to say everybody works very hard. It's working. So it really, begs the question: how does all of this change company dynamics, balance sheets, cost? Because if you look at your office space of all of a sudden differently, where if you think about 3 people 3 days a week, that's 9 business days. They can share 2 offices together, and the office is still empty one day. One office is still empty one day. So that is reducing cost for companies. That is changing the communication dynamics. How do you actually manage that people still mingle with each other, that we don't have groups that never see each other? How do you actually communicate with the company and with everybody? There's so many aspects that I think will never come back to how it was. And then I talked with my daughter who's working for Carfax. It's 25 and we're happy there. They do a good job too. Shout out to Carfax. She said too, that in her generation, she does not think that companies that will not adjust to this new, way of working, who want to go back to 5 days a week, that they will have success getting good young people. It might not even be just a generational thing, but definitely with the younger people, it will be tough. And I believe that too. So the question I want to pose is, so how do you think about your office space? How do you think about working from home and the tools you need to roll out to the company and to people? What tools do people need now beyond Zoom and whatever in order to be as effective or even be more effective? And then the most important question related to all of this: how does recognizing all of this change your company strategy and your business plan? If you have not started now to think about completely changing your business plan and revisiting your business plan and recognize, I have to step back and formally create a new business plan and overall plan for the company right now. If you don't do that, I think you're already late. I'm not saying you're too late, but you have to work on that right now, going forward, facing realities.
Thomas, I would like, sorry, Nicole, I would like to jump in and talk a little bit about that. I think what my honest opinion is, I think that the companies that are going to succeed are going to be those ones that think outside of their box. I think that they're going to be the ones who say, okay, we need to market in a new way. We need to treat our employees in a new way. We need to make our, team building in a new way. And I feel like anybody that sits back and says things are going to go back to normal, first of all, they should be fired, because that's never going to happen. Let's be honest. First of all, you can make all your employees come in, and then it could be your office that spreads the virus in your local town. My personal opinion, though, with this being said, I also feel like how you're saying that it may not attract certain people. I feel like the job industry is going to be a brand new game, because you know what? Guess what? Years, or not even years ago, 3 months ago, when you were hiring for a company, you only looked in your local pool. Well, if you're virtual, you can hire throughout the US. So I feel like you have to step up your game even as an employee, because guess what? Now companies can see who's actually performing and who's not. I know a couple companies that friends work for, they have keyboard watchers on their employees. So guess what? You're stepping away doing laundry for 2 or 3 hours. Your boss knows. So with that being said, I think that it is going to be, as an employer, you're going to have to market a different way. You're going to have to engage your employees a different way. And you're also going to have to talk to your customers a different way. And if you can't get those 3 in shape, then your rate of survival may not be that high.
I would agree with that.
I agree with that as well. During the Sprout social digital sessions yesterday, one of the biggest quotes for me that resonated was, we're not just going to pivot and go back to normal after this. And I think some brands are thinking that's going to be the case, that, the state reopens, we have the opportunity to go back. All right, here we go, business as usual. but I don't think that's going to be the case, not for a very long time.
Right.
And I think a lot of companies were kind of caught in a situation where maybe they weren't that flexible, or they never really had work from home plans before. They've never thought about it. So when all this hit, they didn't know what to do. So I think some brands were forced to rethink about their business strategy at the beginning of all this.
Right. Okay, great. That's good input. Nicole, why don't you surprise us with your news of the week?
Sure. So a little bit of a news blast here. Instagram, not Pinterest. Instagram has a new feature in beta, which is pinning comments to the top of the comment section. So let's say I follow a doctor's office on Instagram, and I go there a lot. I like them. And they post a picture, here's Dr. So-and-so, and I comment and I say, hey, I had a really great experience with him. Such a nice guy, healed great. They can now take my comment, even if I've commented 3 days later, and pin it right to the top. So we are now able to use Instagram as a review platform.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is, I'm anxious to see how that will actually influence even the whole review and star rating. If sometime in the future they will add that to it. And also, are you planning to actually go back? Can you use it for retroactively, or only for future posts?
There's not a lot of information out on it right now, just because it is in beta and it's only being rolled out to some of the higher creatives. Its initial use was actually, we're seeing a rise in bullying since people are home and kids are home from school. So its initial use was to be able to pin positive comments at the top of posts. So any of the negative and the bullying comments fall to the bottom. So I'm not quite sure about that retroactive. I'd be interested to see if Instagram allows that to happen.
That's great news. That's really a big feature. So I'm looking forward to see that roll out and being used by our clients.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of really cool features come out of all of this.
Well,
Right.
I mean, let's be honest. If anybody's stepping up their game, it's the social media platforms. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, Google. Now more than ever, they've gained their audience like there's no tomorrow.
Absolutely.
That's great. It was a lot of good, interesting information that I would say we'll call the episode number 7. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next week. I will continue to enjoy a nice view at White Mountain. Bye.